This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Wanna win something for free? Is there any other way to win something, Friel? Otherwise, you'd be buying it. This is Wretched Radio. I guess that was kind of redundant, wasn't it? Got in my hand a copy of Crucified, the Soul of the Gospel, written by one Emilio Ramos. You know Emilio, Red Grace Media, also pastoring Heritage Grace Community Church in Fresno, Texas. I get to be there in October. I believe it's October. I'm looking forward to that a lot. It's going to be a conference with, I think, Phil Johnson is there. I'm pretty certain. James White is going to be there. And apparently now we've added to the roster Brandon House. I guess that he and James White are going to do a presentation together.
Little sparring match.
I don't think Brandon's going to be there.
Well, no holds
so
barred.
Join us in October. And if you'd like to win a copy of Crucified, the Soul of the Gospel, with a foreword by Phil Johnson, no less, send me an email. idea@wretchedradio.com. idea@wretchedradio.com. And I'm going to make an unusual request. Do not be funny. Do not be witty. The last time we did this, I don't even recall asking you to, compete for the wittiest email, but you did, and it made it impossible to pick. I hated it, so don't just send your name and address, and we'll just pick it randomly. We're going to throw out a fleece on this one. We're going to do Uman and Thuman. Here's a question for you. Is there anything wrong with casting lots as a Christian? Do you think that that's ever acceptable? We see that in the book of Acts. Remember, if you recall, picking the replacement for that Judas Iscariot. They cast lots because they knew that God is in charge of everything. He knows where the lot will fall, where he desires for it to fall. And so they did that in order to pick, because they had two qualified guys. Is that ever a good idea? And the answer to that is, as a rule, no. But I think that there can be some exceptions. The reason I don't think we do that anymore is because we have the sufficient Word of God. We've got everything that we need in the Bible to make godly decisions about life, about morality, how we're supposed to make church decisions. It is all there. But there are times when we can't seem to figure it out well or apply it rightly, and you could have a very similar situation. It was Matthias and
the other
was
guy.
it Larry? See, that's what happens when you don't get chosen. Although we didn't hear a thing about Matthias afterwards, did we? It's Matthias, and was it Bill? No?
Joseph called Justice, wasn't it?
Wow. Look at the three perplexed faces here. They couldn't decide between the two of them. So what did they do? They cast lots. Why did they do that? Well, they didn't have the sufficient Word of God yet. We do, so we shouldn't need to. But I wouldn't call it a sin if you ever need to do that. And so we're going to be casting lots, which is why I now take that position that it's not a sin, so that I can do it myself. Isn't that typically the way it works? By the way, speaking of, send it to idea@wretchedradio.com. Speaking of conundrums, I have got one. I have not been able to figure this out consistently yet. Received an email from a fellow who said, well, let's just put it this way. His hair isn't receding. He's gaining more face. Let's just put it that way. And he is wondering, because it was recommended to him by a dermatologist, that he uses Rogaine or some other sort of hair stuff that makes it grow up there. So the question is, well, should I do that? Is it vanity? And the answer to that question, I've never been able to, in any time that I've tried to think it through, I finish it and I go, but in other words, I sound like Jerry Lewis to myself. And so I am trying to work this through, because there's a variety of considerations in this. Okay, for instance, let's see if we can wrangle through things like braces, cosmetic surgery, having some sort of physical deformity, whatever it is. Can we crossed eyes, skin issues, gray hair, you've got a big nose, you don't like your body type, the curves aren't right, whatever the issue is, can we utilize any of the current technology to improve those areas. And I think that's the right way to phrase it. Because I think the reason that we all don't look, like, well, let's just use what would be the perfect, yeah, exactly. Just 6'4", 6'5", about 185 scrawny pounds. The perfect form. Why isn't everybody like Tony? The answer is because of the fall. That's what we see. When things are not as proportional as they should be, or they are, I'm not sure what the correct word is, they're deformed, or you just don't like the proportionality of it, you'd have to say it's because of the fall. Now, I have to admit to you, I don't think that this means when we get to heaven, we're all going to look like a movie star. I think that our culture defines that, although we can still recognize that there is an aesthetic beauty that is just objectively better than others. That in God's creation, perfect is better than not perfect, right? So why are things not perfect? Because of the fall. So every time I've wrangled through this issue, I will go, well, yeah, of course you should get braces. And then somebody says, well, what about getting Botox on my cheeks? No. And I feel like I'm not being consistent. So here's how I kind of wrangled through it a little bit. Option number 1, God made you that way, whether you are Lady Gaga or not. Shun societal pressure to tell you that's not as good as it. Just shun it. That would be a consistent position, would it not? All of it. You got buck teeth? Then live with it. Does that feel right to you? There's something about now. My feelings got to go away. If my principle is going to be applied consistently, I would have to say none of that stuff should happen. In fact, don't pluck your unibrow, sir or madam, I guess, because that's tampering with God's creation. And society says you should have 2 of them with about 3/4 of an inch or whatever it is in between the 2 of them. So pluck away. That just seems odd to tell somebody to not do that, doesn't it? Option number 2, only use if, and I put it in quotation marks, legitimate correction is needed. All right, I know what you're thinking. So what's legitimate? And that's where it gets all fuzzy, doesn't it? Where I think it becomes kind of a complex issue. Teeth, hair, nose, body type, gray. Can you use the hair coloring stuff? Can you do that to dye your hair like Joey clearly does?
This is natural, my friend.
That's all natural. Yeah, well, that's because
my grandpa
24.
died at 93 with a full head of black hair.
Listen
and
to
I
you.
got some of those genes passed on.
Clinging to
my
that.
dad, meanwhile, started going bald in 9th grade.
Desperately determined to think that you're going to have dark hair for the rest of your days.
No, I'm just saying I'm better off than you.
Pathetic.
That's all that
Because
matters.
my
Is I'm
grandpa
better
was
than you.
104 when he died with a full head of hair, and it was starting to get gray. So don't say that you're better than me, pathetic
It's right around
one.
the temples. It was distinguished looking.
That's exactly right. It's a crown of glory, is it not? Option number 3, use it. You just use it. Use it all. Whatever. It's a blessing. Would we ever say to somebody, don't use medicine? Well, I guess if you're like a Scientologist or whoever those folks are who shun use it, like blood transfusion for a Jehovah's Witness. Now use it. It's God's blessing, so go ahead and use it. All of it. Now, which one of those feels right to you? Which one of those? And I think the answer is 2 and or 3. I think our attitude should be, why not use those things? The issue is not an application of a modern-day technology to improve on the aesthetics of your body. It's a heart issue. It's just a heart issue. And I think different people are going to make different decisions on some of these things. And I think we need to leave it squarely in the camp of Adi Afron. It's a disputable dispensation. It's neither commanded nor forbidden by God. God doesn't seem to have a problem with putting on different types of clothing for different types of occasions, for the priest to dress a certain way, a more formal way, a set-apart kind of way. If we weren't supposed to do anything to look different, I think that there would be rules. You all need to wear this. That's it. There can be no distinctions, no differences. So I think what it comes down to is heart. And that we give others the liberty to make decisions on these things and to wrestle through it, and to have those people inside of our church and inside of our family simply help us with the heart issue, because that's precisely what this is all about. God doesn't give us those types of rules and details. It's sort of like giving, because I'm looking for a fight again. You give what you want. You wear what you want. Now, you could be sinning, but that, I believe, is between the Christian and God. So, Joe, to answer your question, didn't really answer the question
at all. No.
You answer the question. And might I just suggest, if we see people making decisions we wouldn't make, we don't jump to pointing a finger and automatically determining that's a sin. That's no fun. This is Wretched Radio.
Thanks for listening to the Wretched segment du jour. If you'd like more Wretched, you can listen to the most current stream for free at wretched.tv/listen, or you can become a club member and listen to our entire archive. Wretched, reaching the lost, equipping the saints, and strengthening the local church.